What you're going to hear me talk a lot about is that all behavior is goal-oriented. Whatever they're doing is to accomplish a goal somewhere. And that becomes important when you start to look at your child's behavior, because most of you want to manage your child's behavior. And that's okay, because we're going to talk about rules and consequences and that stuff. But behind that is a drive to accomplish something. The behavior that you see is the visible expression of the invisible issues in the life of your child. You follow me so far? Everybody with me? That's why a girl's going to take a phone. 39% of girls, isn't that amazing? At age 12 and up, have sent inappropriate pictures of themselves. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? That here, I'm going to take a picture of myself and send it. We were down in Cabo, St. Lucas. That's where I write most of my stuff. And we go down and spend a week, and I just write. I get up early in the morning. And here's this girl sitting there just, I'm going. And then she just look at it and go, And she's looking for it to send to somebody. And I'm just going, to me, there's a real oddity and desperation. That would be like me calling Jan when we were in the 9th grade on a rotary phone. Hey, and she answers on her little princess phone at home and picks it up. And, hey, Jan, why don't you send me a nude Polaroid of yourself through the U.S. mail? Now think about that for a minute. Think about how desperate I am to want to have a relationship with somebody that I'm doing that. Or a guy who says, I'm just going to take a little dick pic here and take a picture of this and send it to my girlfriend or some girl because that's what she wants. I did that when I was on the road a couple of weeks ago and sent a picture to Jan. By the time I got home, she had thrown up all over the walls. I'm going, but think about that for a minute. Think about how desperate somebody has to be, a young man has to be, for relationships. That I go, okay, I'm going to take a picture there and send it so somebody will spend time with me, so somebody will pay attention to me, so somebody will look at me. And it gives you an idea of the desperation of a culture that is truly longing for a relationship, that they would stoop that low. What I've painted is some of the motivation of that I'll give up and have a relationship with a girl just to have the relationship. That I will, that I'll send pictures just to have the relationship. That I'm consumed with Snapchat and Instagram, and they're not on Facebook. We are. And but I'm consumed with that so much that's the driving motivation, that I'm that desperate because nothing else is working in my life. You following me? Your kid's anxious. They deal with anxiety. They depressed. I'd be depressed if I knew that every attempt I was making at relationships wasn't working. Because it's God designed. God designed me to have a relationship with people. And if I can't have that, then I'm going to spend my time isolated in my room. I'm going to consume myself with playing video games where I don't have to engage with anybody else. And so that video game is fulfilling the very things that John Eldridge talks about in Wild at Heart. Plus I'm visually stimulated, so I'm enjoying playing this game. See what I'm saying? I'm going to send these pictures. I will violate everything that my parents have taught me for the sake of having relationships. When I talked this morning about middle school kids, when they get to this age and now it matters what they wear and what they look like. Those of you who have daughters sure know that challenge of modesty, don't you? And so you begin to go, I don't think you're going to wear that. No, I think. And they're going, I need to wear it because it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, shows more and more and more. And and because they're growing up in a world where everything's exposed. I would venture to say that you and I have watched movies that we would not have watched 20 years ago. You think? I cuss more in my head than I did 20 years ago. Jan goes, what are you thinking? You don't want to know. You just don't want to know. But it's because we've been exposed to so much. And I think what happens in the midst of that, then we see our kids as kind of moving away from the values and the principles that we really want them to embrace. And we get the idea we're not doing a good job, which isn't true. You're doing a great job. But at the same time, we're not doing a good job, so they're moving away from it. And they're just trying to have their needs met. It's not that they're being rebellious. I don't deal with rebellious kids. The kids that live with us, they're lost. And when it was funny, they sang How Great Thou Art this morning, which is it's always a tearjerker for me. That's why I was looking away, and I'm not even going to sing this song because I'll start crying before I get up here. It's just a song that means something to me. But everybody was singing at the same time. I think your kids are the values that they have and what they've believed in, they'll give those up in a heartbeat, but there's a true longing inside of them to embrace those values. They just don't know how to take what they've learned during these first 12 years of their life, and I'm going to do this a lot, the first 12 years of their life, and apply it to the next 12 years of their life. And so we as parents keep trying to do the same thing over and over, thinking we're going to get a different result, and it's not. It's because we don't have the right tools in our parenting toolbox. We haven't shifted the way that we engage. And so that's where it becomes important for us to sit back and look at what are we doing? What are the needs of our kids? How can I communicate differently to make sure that I'm meeting their needs? So we're going to go through kind of a series of stuff as we look at that. And I want you to know this too. I don't get paid for doing this. I make sure you understand that I'm not here to sell you anything. I don't benefit from the sale of books that are sold back in the back. Matter of fact, if you can't afford them, I want to give them to you. I want you to leave with resources. And there's nothing that I can say really that's going to solve everything all at once. It's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of listening to other podcasts, or if you listen to radio, to listen there, or reading some books or something. It's a mindset that's just different. But I believe one that it leads kids to a better place than just allowing them to continue on that road that's not getting them where they want to go. Are you following me so far? It's important for you to understand this relationship thing. And that becomes key. And I would tell you that makes all the difference. And I would say and submit to you that you are the one that can offer something to your child that nobody else can. And so if you have a discipline problem, you have a relationship problem. And that's what you have to deal with. Now, doesn't mean we forget about the behavior. I'm not saying that at all. But the relationship becomes key. Any kid that's lived with us will tell you this. We know that Mark loves us. I mean, I've got 16 girls coming over to eat dinner on Wednesday night at our house. Which reminds me, would somebody remind me, I need to tell my wife that. That might be good. But they know that I love them. I mean, and that's what I want them to know more than anything. But they also know this, that I don't tolerate anything. So it's both ends. But I don't want to be known for, he doesn't tolerate anything. That's not what I want to be known for. I want to be known for how I love those kids that have been placed with us. That's what I want. But I got to tell you on the other hand, so just some of the men are going, he's a wimp. He's up there will give up everything for kids, and he's a child advocate. I am all those things, but I don't tolerate anything. And so there's almost severe consequences for the violation of disrespect and dishonesty and disobedience. Now, I mean, I think you ought to be cutting off fingers and ears and stuff like that, and it just works. You have to get along with those Texas jokes. They'll fall in a little bit. But I want you to know that the relationship thing becomes key. And it's so key that's really where you have to start. And so one of the things that I would tell you is that your understanding of what's happening in the culture is truly probably the best place to start. This isn't your parents' kind of parenting. It's not your grandparents' kind of parenting. It's not parenting as it was 5 or 6 years ago. And as you have kids that have that difference, somebody here has kids that are 24 and 8, and I told them, you need to leave your wife alone and just not do that anymore because you're spreading it out over a long period of time. But there's a part of it where I don't know what that was. we had that a little bit this morning. And anyway, I think I'm good. I'll make sure your understanding makes all the difference in the way that you approach your child. It changes your attitude. It keeps you from going crazy. It keeps you from drinking till you're blue in the face. Somebody always asks me, how do you do it? How do you live with 60 high school kids? And I go, well, I drink a lot. And then I come back and kind of joke with them. I go, no, that's not true. I don't drink enough. And no, but I go, you learn to laugh. Because you learn to laugh at this system that they're going through and these ideas and thoughts. In one sense, if all behavior is goal-oriented, it's kind of a game. So you play the game and there's things you can do to help pull them out of it, to pull them to a different place. Are you guys following me so far? Your understanding becomes key. It would be like this. Let's say that Pastor Kyle here he walks down the aisle and he's stuttering and he's bouncing back and forth and he's just kind of wobbly and walking up here and he walks up and he comes up here and he goes, Mark, he puts his arm around my shoulder and just throws up all over my boots. You guys would be mad, be angry, be disappointed. You'd be going, not only is he drunk, he's fired. No, I mean, you just gotta go kill the guy, hang him up, drag him through the streets. We got to get him out of here. He's such an embarrassment. And I go, wait a minute. He's not drunk. He's having an aneurysm. Now every one of you look at it different. I would look at him and go, I am honored that he came to me. And now it doesn't even matter that he threw up all over my boots. And here's the thing, every one of you in this room would run to him in a heartbeat. You're seeing the same thing. And I think sometimes what we do is see kids one way, and we don't realize that really something else is going on. And they may be looking at you, flipping you off, rolling their eyes, telling you to go F yourself and stick things in parts of your body that don't fit, stuff like that. I mean, when you get to that point, you have a child that's rebelling against you, and there's something behind it. Behavior gets kids to us, but that's not what we deal with. There's something that's always driving it. And so when you begin to understand that there is something going on in their life that is motivating the behavior, then the key is to control the behavior, but to get to a point where you're dealing with the motivation behind it. Because if you don't, and all you do is control behavior, when your child leaves for school or goes to get a job or enters the military when they're 18, it's going to come back up again because you're not going to be around to do that. So your understanding becomes key. Everybody follow me on that? Kids are selfish, you think? They are consumed with themselves because you and I have created that world. This is an issue that we've created. We get the idea, the kids get the idea that they're entitled all the time because we give them things all the time. And I'm guilty. I'm the same. I mean, I have given my kids more than my dad ever gave me. I give my grandkids stuff. I mean, it's just, but when they get to a point where they go, you owe me. My message that I try to tell kids all the time is that I want you to know that I don't owe you anything, even my own kids. I want to give you everything, but I don't owe you anything. And they get the idea that you're supposed to provide all that stuff. And so I would start telling your kids at age 5 and 6, I'm not paying for college. I'm not buying you a car. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. So that when you do it, it is looked at as an act of grace and something they can be grateful for. But you and I have created that. I mean, they demand a cell phone. Well, and I'm one of those guys that believes, why do we increase a kid's allowance the older they get? We ought to be decreasing it. That forces them to hold a job. There's plenty of jobs out there. But why don't we do that? Why don't we want them to work? Your child works, they get to learn how to submit to another authority. They learn about respect because they're probably going to be in the food business or service business. They're going to learn the value of money, which every kid, why do they need to do that? Well, when you move from a teaching model to a training model, if our job is to train up a child, then I need to make sure that I'm giving them the tools that they need when they leave home. What's the number one problem that newlyweds have the first year of marriage? Money. And so that's all I want to teach about money. My granddaughter got a job when she was 16, so this was a number of years ago. And I remember her coming to our house, and she opened up her check. You know what her first comment was? That's it? That's it? That's all I get? Are you serious? What are these? What's taxes? What's this? What's that? And I'm going, welcome to the world. They learn how to handle money. They learn how to treat people. They handle rejection. They get yelled at by people. They learn that it's okay to fail and bounce back. There's something about a job. What's the first thing that God did to Adam when he created him? He gave him a job. Said, go take care of the garden. There's something about that becomes important, that they learn those things. And so that's where I go. Sometimes we're the ones that go, no, because we need to keep them in sports, or we need to keep, and I'm a big sports guy, hear that. I did the 72 pre-Olympics. I'm big, have always been big, I'll just not move. Been big into swimming and everything, and got a granddaughter that's going nuts in volleyball right now and has colleges looking. I'm all for that, but I'm not for them not working, even if it's 10 hours a week or something. I want to break that mentality of feeling entitled, and only I can do that. So when I start to realize that they're selfish, I got to break that selfishness. I got to help them with that. I've got to start changing the way that I engage with them, where they begin to realize that the world doesn't revolve around them. Have you seen people like that still believe that the world revolves around them in their 20s? They're probably not married, or they've been divorced. You know, they're probably, some of you ladies probably married narcissists. That's why it didn't last, because they're so consumed with yourself. When you get married, you can't be selfish. I ask people all the time, what's the first thing you learn in marriage? And most people go, I'm so selfish. That's what you learn. And if we don't break it, it's got to be broken somewhere. And so it just means that I've got to make that happen. They live in an appearance and performance world where it's all about me, where they spend time going, will somebody just look at me? Will somebody pay attention to me? Look at their TikTok, look at Instagram, look at Snapchat. It's just somebody pay attention to me. And they go to all levels to get people to pay attention to them. And my point of it is, the kids that live with us don't have cell phones. And I'm not suggesting it's whenever I move my right leg. I shouldn't have run that wire down my underwear. I think that's. I'm going to pull it up a little bit in my back. You know, I think that's what it is. It's just tied up. Ooh, I found it. Okay. Okay, got it. Where was I? Yeah, the cell phone thing. Yeah, the teens that live with us don't, but I'm one of those guys that believes that kids ought to get cell phones at 8, 9 years of age. Not access to the internet, but I believe they need to have cell phones because I want them to connect with one another. And so what we do is start out just a little tiny circle of friends. So it may be 5 or 6 people in the family. And then as they get older, you expand that and let them have the opportunity to learn how to take something and make it into a very normal part of their life, like a TV set, the radio in the car, or those things. And so I think it's a stupid idea, but I think it's one of those things that I go to counter what's happening in the world, that I want them to learn how to do that. Now, this appearance and performance world that they live in, you and I play a big part in that. You know, if you read the book that I wrote called Tough Guys and Drama Queens, it'll tell you that there's 3 things where parents fail in the way that they come across in their parenting style. And that's demanding perfection, where you have a parent that really walks around the house quoting Matthew 5:48 that says, "Be ye perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." They hate judgment, which is very difficult in this day and age, to say things and not be judgmental. And the other thing they don't like is this authority that is slammed down like this. Why? Because their ideas and pictures of authority is not good. What's the first word that comes to your child's mind when they hear the word police? Politician. Priest, with all due respect to the Catholic Church. I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in a couple of weeks, and I guarantee you say the word coach up there and it's a little bit different. Are you following what I'm saying? Sometimes they hear the word pastor and they've heard all these stories about pastors that have done crazy things, and they hear about them. So now they think all pastors are like that. That's what we're waging war against. I mean, our kids really think the world is like that. They think that everybody's getting eaten by a shark if you get in the water on the coast. You know, I mean, you have Sharknado, Megalodon, Jaws 12. But everybody thinks, because they're exposed to it all the time, that everybody's getting eaten by a shark. You know how many people actually lose their life to a shark attack in the U.S. every year? Maybe. It was less than 1 2 years ago. Maybe this is a big year. But you look at it and you go, it's not many. But yet they won't get in the water for fear, because they've been told all those things. We get this idea there's more tornadoes now than there ever has been. It's not true. There were more tornadoes in 1974 when we lost our home in a tornado. That's when it was big. I mean, it was crazy off the scale. But it's because they're exposed to so many things, they see so many things, they believe so many things, and they think this is really a worse time in history than any other time. Remember the comment I made this morning about grandparents that need to give perspective? I was raised in the 60s. Our president was assassinated. His brother was assassinated. Martin Luther King was killed in a hotel in Memphis. I mean, 58,000 men lost their lives in Vietnam. I mean, just go through all the stuff. There were more riots in the 60s than anything that we're even thought about here. But our kids get the idea that this is the worst of times. This is awful. This is miserable. Crazy. We think about the pandemic, and I'm not playing that down by any means, but there's been other pandemics in this world that they don't know about. It just happened to strike us. They think that this little conflict that we've had for 20 years in Iraq and Iran, it's huge and we've lost all these people. It compares nothing to the other wars that we've been involved in. So that's where this idea of perspective, but you just have to realize theirs is different You may see your child texting people, dropping the F-bomb. And the reason for it is because they hear it all the time. You think? Do you hear it now more than ever? I do. Man, I've been told, hear everything so much. I mean, your child is hearing, I mean, we get worried about explicit lyrics that drop the F-bomb a couple of times, but they've heard it 400 times the day they go to their Christian school, standing in the cafeteria line, waiting to get their corn dog. I mean, it's prevalent. And so because it is, it's going to bleed over to our family. So if you handle it the way that my dad handled it, boy, he'd smack you upside the head and you got a bar of soap in your mouth. Now think about it, if we did that now, we wouldn't need dentists anymore. Our kids would have such, I mean, is anybody here a dentist? I didn't mean that. No, but I own a soap factory. And so I'm just saying that I'm one of those that just really feel like that there's got to be an understanding in trying to figure these things out. And a lot of kids begin to feel like this God thing doesn't work. That somewhere, do you notice this? I mean, I notice it in every church I'm in. Let's say I'm in 100 churches a year. That in the 7th grade, there's like 1 million kids. And then we have graduation day. There's 4 seniors graduating. You notice it? Now I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much. That somewhere along the line, we're losing kids due to attrition. They're leaving, especially juniors and seniors in high school. And what happens is 82% of kids are leaving the church upon graduation from high school. And they take an 11-year hiatus and come back at age 29, usually when they start having kids. But some of them are just going, this isn't working. And I think that's where it is our role as parents to say, this is what we've taught them these first 12 years. It is now our job to train them. And what's training? Training is taking what you know here and making practical application of it here. How do I take what I've been taught here? I guarantee kids in the Christian church are learning more than they ever have. There's more curriculums, more involvement. We build buildings for them. We give them everything. They're taken care of. The transition is here when they get to middle school and they start to realize maybe this doesn't work that well. So they start trying and experimenting other things. And by the time they get to be a senior in high school, most of them are gone. Do y'all realize that sometimes? Do you see that? And so the part of it isn't that everybody's doing something wrong. The problem is that maybe you and I aren't helping our kids learn how to apply those things to this culture that you and I have said that we're glad that we don't have to grow up in. And so that's where the difficulty comes. And so it goes back to this whole thing that they are created for relationship. And it becomes important for us to keep that on the forefront, to focus on that in no matter what we do. Your son comes home and says, I think I'm gay. What's the most important thing at that time? Then get out. To spend all your time yelling and screaming at him and saying you weren't that way and this. The most important thing is to love him. Sounds weird, doesn't it? My son came home, and he's the one that I mentioned it this morning in one of the services, that he's the one that I came up with the little tagline that says, there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. Until he came to me 9 months after he married his college sweetheart and told me he was having an affair with another girl out in California. That's when things changed. And my comment, wanting to be strong like bull. You know what I told him? I said, well, look, let me tell you this, Adam. When you call your wife's father and apologize for the way you're screwing up her life, when you do that, then I'm happy to talk to you. I didn't see him for 6 months. At the time that my child needed me the most, I pushed him away. The time that I was supposed to walk toward him, I walked away. The one that I've said, there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. When your child does stupid things, when they obliterate the things that you think are so important, when they violate you and they go against everything that you believe in, that's when God would call us to stay there and not walk away from them. Because that's when they need us the most. And if we abandon them during their time of need, if we abandon them, we are truly the ones that have the opportunity to speak truth into their life, and we're not there. So here's my son living at a Radisson Inn. I call it the rat-fested inn. Does anybody here work for Radisson Hotels? God, this place was a dump. It was a dump. So he's there by himself. Even our other board members wouldn't let him come live with them because everybody was staying strong to show and prove to him he's doing the wrong thing. I can prove that somebody's doing the wrong thing and let there be consequences while still loving them at the same time. My son didn't get a divorce to get back at me. He got a divorce because the relationship wasn't right. Was he messing up? Sure he was. It's all worked out. Our ex-daughter-in-law married the guy of her dreams, and they're doing well. My son married this gal, and they're doing well. Matter of fact, when my son had his first child, Marissa, his ex, had her twins the day beforehand, and they posted it on Facebook together. And when it came up on my feed, they were right underneath each other. And it was just God reminding me, we're going to be okay. Those are the tough things about parenting. When you get to those hard spots, because it's easy, as I mentioned it this morning, it's easy to say amen to a lot of things until you're faced with the difficulty and hardship. I believe that God is good. He's really good. I believe that each day is sweeter and sweeter with Jesus. Tell that to people who are now getting chemotherapy or lost their child yesterday, or see what I mean? That's where it becomes difficult. So my point of it is that the only way we get through that stuff is in a relationship. And what I want to do is give you some ideas, thoughts, and kind of directives about how to move from a teaching mode here. I'm going to use this as the example for the first 12 years to a training mode here.